Scholars spent centuries assuming the Maya relied on written calendars to farm. They were looking at the wrong evidence entirely. For most of the 20th century, the accepted story was straightforward. The Maya possessed sophisticated written calendars, the Tzolk'in, the Hab, the long count. Priests and scribes maintained them. Farmers consulted them. Planting and harvest dates were dictated from above by a literate elite. The common Maya peasant was, in this telling, largely passive. He followed instructions. He didn't think about the sky or the seasons himself. He simply obeyed. This model made sense to Western scholars. It mirrored their own relationship with calendars, written, centralized, top-down. But it carried an unspoken assumption. It suggested that, without writing, farmers couldn't know when to plant. That observation itself should have raised a question. Humans have farmed for 10,000 years. Writing's only been around for 5. The shift began in the 1970s. Ethnohistorians and ethnobotanists started actually interviewing living Maya farmers, not asking them about calendars, asking them how they decided when to plant. What they said was consistent. They watched the stars. They felt the wind. They observed animals. They read the plants themselves. Take the Pleiades, the star cluster the Maya called Tzab. Around late April or early May, it rises in a particular way at dusk. For centuries, Maya farmers in the Yucatan recognized this moment as the signal to begin burning their milpa fields. The timing wasn't arbitrary. It signaled that the rainy season would follow within weeks. One celestial event. Perfect agricultural precision. No written record needed, but the stars were only part of it. The wind patterns mattered. Specific wind directions signaled moisture. The behavior of certain animals changed weeks before the rains. Wasps built their nests higher. Ants shifted their mound structure. A farmer paying attention to these signs could adjust planting dates by days or even weeks if necessary. This wasn't superstition. It was observation compressed into generations of practice. The plants themselves were calendars. When the ceiba tree flowered, a specific species sacred to the Maya, it meant the soil temperature had stabilized. When certain vines produced new growth, the humidity had shifted. The milpa system, that intercropped field of corn, beans, and squash, created its own feedback loop. Each plant was a signal for what to do next. Here's where the thesis cracks. Archaeological evidence now shows that written calendars, at least the sophisticated ones we found on stelae and codices, may have served a different purpose entirely. They tracked ritual cycles, yes, astronomical events for ceremonial timing, but the everyday farming calendar, that lived in the body, in the eye, in the ear listening for a particular bird's call. Recent ethnographic work in highland Guatemala and the Yucatan documents this precisely. Farmers who never attended school, who couldn't read Spanish or Maya glyphs, planted corn with remarkable consistency. Harvests succeeded or failed based on their reading of environmental cues, not on access to written information. The calendar wasn't something they consulted. It was something they embodied. This changes how we understand Maya literacy itself. The written calendar wasn't primitive. It was specialized. A priest needed it to track the ceremonial year. A farmer didn't. His calendar was distributed across the sky, the soil, the animals, the plants. It couldn't be written down because it required constant interpretation. The same star position meant different things depending on what the wind had done that week. The implication is subtle but profound. We've spent centuries assuming that knowledge without writing is knowledge without sophistication. That assumption was backwards. A farmer who tracks 30 different environmental signals simultaneously, who synthesizes them into a planting decision, who does this year after year with minimal failure, that person is conducting applied science. They're just not recording it. The written calendar in this light becomes almost an artifact of power. The priestly class needed to demonstrate control over time itself. They marked it, carved it, made it visible. But the farmers, the vast majority of Maya society, never needed that performance. They had something more reliable. They had the world. This knowledge persisted through Spanish conquest, through centuries of suppression. Farmers in the Yucatan today still recognize the Pleiades rising. They still watch the wasps. They still listen. The written calendars are artifacts in museums now. The real calendar never stopped working. What we're left with is a corrected picture, not of a literate elite commanding an illiterate peasantry, but of two separate knowledge systems coexisting. One written, ceremonial, hierarchical, one embodied, practical, distributed across a community. Both necessary, neither subordinate to the other. The farmer didn't need the priest's calendar. The priest's calendar never fed anyone. The deeper lesson sits underneath. We tend to measure intelligence by what survives in writing, by what we can read, by what looks like our own methods. But knowledge that lives in practice, in observation, in the hands and eyes of people working the land, that's invisible to us until we stop looking at documents and start looking at the people themselves. The Maya farmers were never silent. We just weren't listening in the right way. Subscribe. Every week, we dig into the forgotten knowledge systems of ancient civilizations, the routines, the decisions, the intelligence of ordinary people that history almost erased. Subscribe every week. We uncover the forgotten knowledge systems and daily genius of ordinary people in ancient civilizations.